Greetings, everybody. Merry meet, blessed be, Uath there. Today's August 10th, 2026. So, this is a video that honestly I haven't been wanting to make. I've been running from it for a long time, and I knew that this day would come. I knew that eventually I'd have to face the fact and also disclose it in a shareable, rational way, I hope. I've kept it secret because, like I said, a lot of my magical endeavors, my magical workings and stuff like that have been in the shadows, away from public eye, in regards to, I've never come forward like this publicly and disclosed my magical workings, my magical endeavors. As you can tell, I'm really nervous about this because it's not so much sharing, a summary biography about how I got to where I'm at, in part. But there is a part that is very uncomfortable for me to talk about. Okay. Because I don't want to give people the wrong impression that I'm better than anyone else. Every human being is a priceless spirit and is a priceless individual that should never be taken for granted and should always be respected. I've tried to think about how I was going to present my bio, my biography, but I don't like writing stuff down and rehearsing stuff. I just open my camera and hit play or record. I've already, through my screenshots and past videos and stuff, I've already disclosed a short, really brief paragraph bio in regards to I was born a strong clairsentient and clairvoyant, and and then my investment into my new spiritual path, which I found back in 1996, and the hours, the time that I've sacrificed, and the money, and all this stuff, but the timelines seem to confuse a lot of people and put a lot of people in doubt in regards to the validity of what I'm saying. But yeah, and I'm going to be honest. I just don't go out because I'm not proud of it. But without it, I wouldn't be the man I am today, the person I am today. And but I spent a lot of time incarcerated. I committed a heinous crime, and I spent a lot of time incarcerated. However, I also want to disclose in regards to that, that, and this is just a whole different subject for another time, but the first 15 years of my incarceration, 12 of those years, the last 12 of those years, I was incarcerated for my Wiccan religious beliefs, not so much my crime. And again, that's another story for another time, and I don't mind sharing that with people. But right now, I want to explain that had I not been incarcerated, I would not have had the time and dedication, or to dedicate myself and into the self-sacrifices that I made, and the study and the conditioning that to achieve the status I am today. And I know that this is gonna ruffle a lot of feathers with a lot of practitioners and stuff, but the thing about it is this is a video that I'm not going to put on TikTok. I'm not going to put this on Facebook unless I send it personally to somebody else. It's going to be on YouTube, and I hardly get any views on YouTube. You know what I mean? But if they view it on YouTube, then they view it. But it's a very personal video. It's very personal to me. But one of the things that has got me to where I am today, and this is the part that is really hard for me to talk about, and I've never wanted to undermine anybody else's beliefs or practices in regards to their magical endeavors, their magical path. But and I don't know, seriously, or I do know, actually, why my magical endeavors are so successful. And again, I was born a very strong clairsentient and clairvoyant, and throughout my life growing up, it was more of a curse than really a blessing like it is now, but that's because I didn't understand it. But I didn't understand my gifts, but it's like growing up having a built-in polygraph machine. And having friends, growing up, it seems like, our friends are always, a friendship's always conditional, very few friends are like, boom, there for you, 100%. And I think I really only had one friend that was like that. Actually, two friends that was actually like that. But all my other friends and wifey stuff, friendship was always conditional, But I could always feel that. I could always feel those energies. And then I was raised LDS and Mormon, and I grew up in quite the hypocritical family, you know. My mom, she was really devoted and very sincere and very um, uh, attached and bonded, embracing her religious beliefs and her involvement with the membership of her church. And my dad, he was a Jack Mormon. And my brother, he was kind of a Jack Mormon too, in a way, but he kind of fit in between like mom and dad, you know. But you know, I'm not here to talk about uh, you know, all the uh, crazy life I grew up in regards to that. But you, you know, even going to church and stuff, and involved in Bible study classes and stuff like that, I could tell there was something, you know, invalid and false about what I was being taught, and religion. Growing up, religion was a really big conflict for me, and there's just so much hypocrisy, and it was always justified with the terms of forgiveness, and you go and basically disclose yourself with the bishop, and you know, and admit your sins or whatever, you know, what you've done wrong and stuff. They give you a blessing or whatever, and kind of give you a clean slate to move on. But it was just the belief system itself, and my parents were pretty cool about that, because I had some friends and stuff that belonged to different denominations of Christianity, and they were cool with me going to their church and learning other different religions and stuff, and it's the same thing. So religion was a big conflict for me growing up. But when I got in trouble, I started really looking at my life and you know, the path that I had chosen, the destructive path that I had chosen that got me to where I was, incarcerated. And I come to a real hard fact conclusion that I needed to change my life around for the better. And I felt like I really needed something spiritual to embrace, but I wanted something that didn't require blind faith, something that was objective, something that, you know, I could see, I could feel, I could touch, I could, you know, interact with on an objective level. And I studied a lot of different uh, religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, you know. And then I was introduced to witchcraft, Wicca, back in 1996. And I had a friend that I made, and me and this guy created a friendship, and he had some books on Wicca, and I was really interested, and but you know, growing up, we're all taught that witchcraft, you know, we're taught all the false dogma about it. And so he borrowed me some of his books to read, and wow, it wasn't anything like I was brought up believing. And that again enforced a lot of my biases and discrimination towards Christianity, period. whatever denomination. And so, and I was really interested with it and stuff. Something happened um, during my learning process that totally changed my life around for the better, but totally changed my life around in such a supernatural, phenomenal way. It just, I mean, something happened to me. Divinely happened to me. So I began purchasing my own books, and I purchased the Big Blue Book, and I read the 13 Basic Principles and Beliefs. And when I read them, it was such a strong spiritual epiphany. You know, I broke down. I broke down. It hit me so hard because basically I've always been close to nature. Grew up in a very successful hunting family, camping family. I mean, we've always embraced nature. I was always brought up to respect it. And, you know, and my mom knew a lot of the wild edible plants and stuff. I learned a lot of herbalism in regards to the wild edible plants in our local mountains and stuff and out in the deserts. And so we are a very, very nature-oriented family. And that's when I was about 14 years old. That's pretty much Mother Earth is pretty much what I began worshiping. She sustains it, you know. She gives us everything to sustain us, you know, to sustain life. And when I was reading these 13 Basic Principles of Beliefs, at that time I didn't have the knowledge and the wisdom to be able to articulate it like that. But that was basically my generic belief system. And so it hit me hard. It was such a strong spiritual epiphany, and that beyond words, I can't even explain it, and I'm not even going to attempt to, because it wouldn't give it any justice whatsoever in regards to the impact that it had on me. Something happened. Now my cellmates, at that time, Utah State Prisons was pretty laid back and kicked back in the 90s. You know, it wasn't until the late 90s, you know, a lot of gang activity and different things and stuff. You know, but I mean, you know, where I was down in Gunnison, Utah, it was really kicked back. It was all educational and stuff, and there was actually a Wiccan study class down there. It wasn't a worship, but it was a study class. But, you know, and it was just all my cellmates and stuff really, really cool. And I never felt out of place or indifferent about doing my studies and my you know, my thing and what have you stuff. They were really cool with it and stuff, so I felt real comfortable. And so I was devoting from the time I woke up for lunch. Usually lunch came around about like, you know, 6 o'clock. We'd have lunch, and then about around 7 o'clock, they would open up movement, and you could go to your classes and different things and stuff, and then you had lunch, and then dinner, and depending on your level and stuff, your lockdown time was different, you know, but everybody locked down at 10 o'clock, but I had a cool little job that was kicked back and laid back, and really didn't require much of anything. And it was one of the better paying jobs there for, you know, a prison job. But um, yeah, I was able to, man, from sun up to sundown, you know what I mean? From, uh, after movement opened and I had the cell all to myself, then they'd come back and then they'd leave for the day and stuff, my cellies and stuff. I mean, uh, yeah, I had nothing but time. And, so, I mean, um, I would study clear until from like 7 o'clock in the morning until about 11 p.m. or midnight, you know, 7 days a week. I was so engrossed. I was so engrossed with it. I was so hungry. And I was so dedicated. A lot of people don't really have that true interest to put forth that type of dedication. And I'm not saying that you have to put in 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, anywhere from actually 12 to 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 10 years straight, to actually learn to work magic, because there's different levels and different types of magic. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that that's what I did, So that's when a lot of people read my short little bio and stuff that I've presented in past videos and stuff, they're like, wait a minute, man, this guy has a family or whatever, he's out in society. No, you're absolutely right. And that's the reason why a lot of practitioners and stuff, they fail in their conditioning process, in their shadow working and stuff, because there's just so much distractions. They ain't got the time to invest into that. And the distortions, the everyday chaos, and keeps them, shelled in that negative lower vibrations, the frustrations at work, the frustrations, going to and from work, the travel on the streets, and, I mean, we're always being bombarded and what have you stuff, with negativity one way or another. And you'd think it was, the horror stories that you hear about prisons, and some prisons are like that, but at that time, Utah State Prison wasn't like that. A little bit, but not nowhere near like some other ones are. So, that's where I was able to put in all that dedication stuff, is during my incarceration. And I've purchased, over 180 books, and I've read more than that, not just on magic and Wicca and paganism and different forms of magical, pasts and practices and stuff like that, but archaeology, stuff like that, and I just history on different societies and things, and the myths and of different cultures and traditions. And I mean, I covered, a vast amount of knowledge and information and stuff and what have you, and it blows me away. But like I said, my dedication was there. I was being driven by this divine energy, and this is the thing that really bugs me to talk about. Not so much for myself. I'm true to myself. If you can't be true to yourself, you know what I mean, you can't be true to anybody else. And even if you're not true to anybody else, at least be true to yourself. So I'm true to myself. it's just, again, I don't like to put myself out there as though I'm any better than anybody else. I know I don't feel. I know that I've been divinely guided. All my serious questions that I wanted, I've been led to the answers. And I opened up a direct channel with what I call the astral library, the God force, the creative force, the intelligent cosmos, so to speak, divine, whatever you want to put it. It's beyond what words can express. So it's beyond the human ego. It's beyond the human labels. You feel it. We didn't have internet, so we ordered all of our books and what have you stuff out of magazines. And so Llewellyn's and Barnes and Noble and a few other different magazines and what have you stuff, we'd order our books out of there. And I'd be going through my catalog, you know, from Llewellyn's or Barnes and Noble's was more like almost like a newspaper type of catalog. And sometimes I'd go through there and there just wasn't anything that really, you know. But with Llewellyn's, there were a lot of books, a lot of materials and stuff that just basically jumped out at me and gave me a feeling I need to get this book and read it. And so I, you know, I had to mark them off, which ones I wanted, and I'd eventually get them. And within each book, answers were there in regards to questions that I've had. Philosophies, theories about certain things. I'd be led to the answers. And I gave a good example why stuff in regards to water being in oil reservoirs. And like I mentioned, I've never worked on an oil rig. I don't know nothing about that. I always saw oil reservoirs were just oil reservoirs, just nothing but oil. And I knew about water reservoirs. I knew that there was underground water, but I didn't know that they were intermixed. I didn't know that all oil reservoirs under the ground, that is native and untouched, have water. This cosmic library told me that. And, you know, sometimes I'm just blown away by the information I get. And usually I'm led to books that validate that information, that validate those answers to my questions or the information given to me. So I got on, you know, the internet, Google, and I fact-checked that, and sure enough, yeah. And I was like, holy crap, man. And it's such a spiritual, divine experience when you're communicating like that. And I know that, and I don't like talking negative about anybody and stuff, but I know a lot of the self-proclaimed esoteric magicians out there and stuff are just book smart. They're theatrical, they've memorized tarot, they've memorized they know how to work astrology, look on the ephemeris and stuff. Of course, now there's computer programs and stuff, software that you can buy that does all that stuff, calculates it and all that stuff, trigonometry, all that stuff. So, but I had to learn longhand. Boy, that was anyway. Excuse me. The gods have embraced me. And with all the magical endeavors or what have you stuff that I've manifested, I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. Since I have done my magical endeavors, I have felt psychological and mental, cognitive as well as physical, strange anomalies happen within me that, again, I can't explain. Since I've embraced the noumenal world and cosmos, my views, not my world views, my views, my noumenal views, has been kind of detaching me from the subjective worldviews, so to speak, to where I don't feel alien, but I don't feel subjective. I don't, and that's when you're laying down and taming the ego. But since I've done my magical endeavors, I've been experiencing some strange physical phenomena and psychological as well as spiritual phenomena that I just, again, I can't put words to it. But my magic, I mean, the experiences that I've had and still to this day experience, I was designed for this. I don't know how else. I'm not your, I I can't come up with the words to even explain it. But sometimes I know I'm not alien, but sometimes I don't feel totally human either. It's just so hard to explain. Um, I feel more like an observer than a player. Of course, I've felt like that for a long time, but now it's gotten so much more intense. Whenever I have a job, I still got to eat, I still got to drink, still got to have a place to live, you know. Um, I still got to have logistics, supplies, whatever. But I put it down to the minimal. You know what I mean? So when I was living up in Rose Park, up there in Salt Lake, and I started my collection way before then and stuff. But at that time, I had 22 guitars. I had a really nice studio set up and stuff. I love doing music. Music is so important to me and stuff. I mean, it is critically important to me. I love it. I never really went any place with my music, but I do everything, the drums, all the instruments, everything. And I've been working and focusing more on my original stuff. And occasionally I'll do a cover, but and I'm classic country, classic rock, but all my original stuff is more along the lines of kind of, um, you know, um, uh, I don't know how you put it. It ranges. It has so many genres. It's funny, but anyway, I really enjoy it and stuff. And I've posted pictures of my studio and everything and stuff. My gosh, my pedal board is, and I've put so much money, invested so much into that and stuff. But um, I was faced with a situation to where um, some things happen and set me back financially to where I had to um, cover somebody else's costs because I had a roommate, a couple of them that kind of stiffed me, and they did. By the time I got done with all the back, um, anyway, all the oh, late fees and all that stuff. My God, it was crazy. I got all caught up on that, and I had a good job. My rent was like $1,400 a month, and I got thinking to myself, what am I doing? And started having this conversation with the Astral Library, and I realized that I was allowing myself to get shelled by the Uath, and that my suffering and anger and feelings and all that stuff, the Loosh was feeding the Archons and the Uath and all that stuff, and I realized that you know um, um, so on one hand I was preaching against those aspects, and then on the other hand I was embracing it, and it was just an oxymoron. And but anyway, I just realized that rent is just throwing your money away. I might as well just take $1,400, set it on fire. I'm just throwing it away anyway. And so I gave all that up. I already had storage and everything and stuff, and so I brought everything down to storage, and then just eventually started selling it all off. And next to my spirituality, my spiritual path, my music was everything to me. but it's a sacrifice. You have no idea. Now, I still have a couple guitars and stuff, but I haven't been, hasn't been my focus, my music. It's been my spiritual endeavors. It's been this mission that the Divine's got me on and has prepared me for. And, but I gave all that up, you know, so you got to be willing to make the sacrifice. And what's coming is something that's going to test people's ego, so to speak, their strengths and their weaknesses. You have a catastrophic event happen, a flash flood, or regardless of source, and it catches you unexpectedly, you have to adjust to that. And that's exactly what a lot of people are going to be facing. Where's your values? You know, are you going to be willing to make certain sacrifices to help others in your family, the elderly, you know, whatever it may be? I mean, there's just there's just so many choices that we're going to have to make make it through these times that are coming. And but I can promise you this: the world elite, the corporate elite, and all of those who embrace the Uath and feed the archons, the monetary system, they probably won't make it. And it's not a deliberate attack on them. It's just presenting people with a situation, an event where they have to make their own choice. They have a choice, no matter what. You're going to have a choice. And that choice could be either the right one, it's going to secure you in many different emotional, psychological, physically, or it's going to be a choice that is going to be very negatively detrimental to your future or your present. So, but that's how I got to where I am today, in a nutshell. I could spend another tens of hours sharing all the magical endeavors and all the experiences and stuff that I've had in spiritual aspects and psychic events, but I think that, you know, I have some people that are actually looking at me a little more serious now and with a raised eyebrow, with at least with a probability. Now that August has come, and I disclosed that August temperature cleared back in January of 112 degrees Fahrenheit. Of course, that's sun radiant temperature. That's not ambient temperature, as I explained before. But I think that because we're in it for a 3-year drought, we're in the first year already, but we're going to have another low snowpack winter again, 26 into 27. It's going to lead to 2027 drought. And then from 27 into 28, which is going to lead into 2028 drought summer. Which by the end, it's possible it could bleed into 29. It is possible. But 29, we're going to be getting a lot of moisture. So, and it's going to be building up for phase 2. So, you think this year's bad? Wait until next summer. So what you going to do? What happens if you didn't have, what happens if my magic is just all BS? But it's happening. Maybe I'm not the source. Regardless, what you gonna do? So, anyway, people are really interesting, definitely. Anyhow, love you all. Take care. Blessed be.